In the last few sections, I feel like we kind of sprinted a little bit through user authentication, so I just want to take a second here to wrap up the parse section and explain exactly what we did and what the next steps are. So the first thing that we did was we created a sign-in form, and it sits inside of signin.js. For right now, the user is always going to see this form whenever they start the app up, because we don't really have any form of navigation in our app right now. Main is hard-coded to always show sign in. The form itself shows two text inputs, one for a username and one for the password. We set the password to be obfuscated from the user on the screen by setting the secure text entry property to true. That's what makes the password appear as black dots when they type it in. We chose to update the value of text input by making a controlled form element. We made a controlled form element by making sure that whenever the user updates some text, we updated the state of our component. When we updated the state of our component, it then re-rendered the entire component with the new value of the state, in this case for username. So again, when the user types something in, it sets the state. Setting the state causes the form to re-render, which re-renders the text input and inserts the new value of the username as the value for the text input. Next, we created a custom button component that took a property value of text and a property of onPress. We defined the onPress callback locally right here. So whenever the user taps the sign-in button, it will automatically call our onPress callback that we defined inside of our component here. When the user taps the taps the sign-in button and runs the onPress callback, we use the Parse framework to sign our user in. Specifically, we use the parse.user.login method, which takes the arguments of username and the password, and then an object containing a success callback and an error callback. When the user fails to sign in and the error callback is called, we take the error message off of the error argument and we set the state of our component with that error message. Because because our render method makes use of that error message, whenever the error message is then populated, it updates the component and displays that error message to the user. Finally, in our success callback, for right now, we're just console logging the user, but very shortly we're going to update this callback right here to actually navigate the user over to a different screen that says, hey, you just successfully logged in. Okay, so that's the flow of our application. Well, now just talk a little bit more about what Parse does for us. I really make sure that it's very clear where the divide between React Native is and where the divide between Parse is and what Parse is really doing for us. So Parse is what we would call a backend as a service. It stores data on a database made specifically for our application. This data store organizes different object types into different classes. You could think of each of these classes as like different tables or different buckets in a database. The users of our application exist as the user class. And in Parse, the user class has special meaning. It gets a bunch of free methods like, let me scroll down here, like sign up and log in and also verifying an email and all these other extra properties that we get for free. We can add other classes which don't actually necessarily have any of those special methods available to us. So we could create like another class called tweets that really just was, just a tweet and maybe would point at the user who created the tweet. When a user signs into our application, we send the username and password over to Parse. Parse then looks at all of the users on the users class, on the user collection, and looks for a username that matches the username that we provided. If it finds a match, it will then compare the password. That password, again, is done completely behind the scenes. That password comparison is done completely behind the scenes. So we don't really touch the password or the real password in our application ever, and we can never really request access to the password either. Because we don't yet have a sign-in form, a sign up form, we had to manually create a new user by using the Parse console. We created a new user by using the Add Row button up here at the top. Usually we're not going to manually or add or remove records on a class in that fashion. Normally we're not going to come in here and manually add a user. It was just for convenience sake that we came in here and manually added a row. For the vast majority of the time, like in the case of say making tweets, we would always really rely on the application to create the data on the back end, rather than us coming here and manually type in a bunch of tweets or what have you. Okay, so now that hopefully parse and sign in is a little bit more clear now, I just want to take some time to reiterate what we just went through. So that we need to address the next portion of our app. Users can sign in right now, but they can't sign up, right? Like I can sign in, but I don't have any means on here to actually sign up. And more importantly, we need to make sure that users have the ability to actually navigate to that sign up screen in some fashion. Right now, I can just sit at the sign in screen and I can't really navigate anywhere else. So let's start working on navigation in the next section.